In 2013, the US government was forced to admit that it had been spying on its own citizens, not on enemies or foreign threats, on everyone, for years. Officials had dismissed mass surveillance as conspiracy theory, and they said that intelligence agency only targeted terrorists, and that ordinary people had nothing to fear. But that wasn't true. The leaked documents proved that phone calls were being logged, emails stored, browsing history indexed, even location data was tracked. Not because you were a suspect of a crime, but because you simply existed. This wasn't a temporary emergency program or a rogue operation. It was simply policy. And when the evidence became public, the government didn't deny it. It confirmed it. The revelation didn't come from foreign power. It didn't come from hackers or enemy spies. It came from inside the system, from a 29-year-old contractor who had helped build the surveillance machine himself. And his name was Edward Snowden. Edward Snowden wasn't an outsider trying to burn the system down. He was born inside it. Snowden grew up in a family deeply tied to the US military and government. His father worked for the US Coast Guard, serving as an officer responsible for security and communications. His mother also worked for the federal court system, handling administrative and legal duties. Even his grandfather served as a rear admiral in the US Navy, and later working at the Pentagon and then for the FBI. So this wasn't a family that distrusted the state. Snowden was raised around the idea that government was protecting people, and that secrecy, when used, was meant to defend democracy. And that background mattered, because when Snowden later on questioned the intelligence system, he wasn't doing it as a rebel. He was doing it as an insider who was raised to trust the authority, until the evidence made it impossible to trust. After the September 11 attacks, that sense of duty sharpened. Like many young Americans, Snowden believed that the country was under existential threat, and he wanted to help through intelligence. He joined the CIA in his early 20s, passing the agency's most difficult aptitude tests for analytical and technical ability. All that despite not having a high school diploma. Snowden trained as a cybersecurity specialist, the person who builds and maintains the system that others rely on. Early in his career, Snowden was stationed overseas, including Geneva, Switzerland. Officially, he worked under diplomatic cover. Unofficially, Geneva was a classroom. He witnessed their intelligence work without patriotic framing. He later described seeing intelligence officers encourage targets into compromising situations, then quietly using those moments for leverage. Financial pressure, personal weakness, access. What disturbed him wasn't that intelligence agencies gathered information, it was how casually influence was manufactured. From the CIA, Snowden transitioned to the NSA, the National Security Agency. He worked there as a private contractor. That move expanded his access dramatically. At the NSA, Snowden was managing the infrastructure, servers, databases, search tools. Snowden had administrator-level access, and from that vantage point, he saw something most policymakers never did. He didn't just see what the system was capable of, he saw how it was actually used. And that's when the illusion collapsed. The NSA didn't need suspicion to gather information. The data was collected, stored, indexed, and searchable. The logic had been reversed. Instead of finding a suspect and gathering data, the logic was gather all data and then decide who matters. The NSA didn't need to listen to every phone call, because content wasn't the point. Metadata was. Who you contacted, how often, from where, and at what time. That alone could reveal more than words ever could. With metadata, analysts could map entire social networks, friends, co-workers, activists, sources, everything. If you called one person, and that person called 10 others, and those 10 suddenly went silent, the system flagged it. No accusation or crime, they were just observing patterns. The NSA used programs like Prism. It gave them access to data from major tech companies, emails, video chats, not by hacking users individually, but by tapping into centralized systems. Another tool, Xkey's Core, worked a little bit differently. Think about it like Google, but for intelligence. It functioned like a search engine for the internet. An analyst could type an email address, a browser fingerprint, a language, or even a keyword typed into a search bar. They can instantly see who searched it, where, when, often in real time. No judge was involved, and no warrant was needed. And this is where Snowden realized that this isn't surveillance. It was preemptive collection. Everyone's data was gathered so that anyone could be investigated later. At first, Snowden assumed that there were limits, and that's what the public believed. But inside the intelligence system, things worked very differently. Surveillance programs were approved by a secret court, the FISA court. Its hearings were closed, and its rulings were classified. So basically, Americans were being governed by rules that they were never allowed to even read. When objections were raised, they hit the same wall every time: national security. Snowden eventually understood the purpose of oversight. It wasn't there to stop surveillance, it was there to protect it. Critics later asked why didn't Snowden report that internally? The answer was simple: others had tried. Previous whistleblowers who raised concerns were ignored, sidelined, or destroyed. Internal reporting meant alerting the same people who were running the system, and Snowden understood that the system wasn't broken. It was functioning exactly as designed. So he made a choice. In early 2013, an encrypted message landed in journalist Laura Poitras's inbox, and the sender warned her phones weren't safe, emails weren't private, and anything unencrypted was compromised. He claimed to have evidence of mass surveillance, real evidence. Snowden chose Laura because she was already on the US watch list. Her devices had been seized before, so she personally understood surveillance. He also contacted journalist Glenn Greenwald, pushing him repeatedly to learn encryption. When Greenwald didn't, Snowden stopped responding. Eventually, a meeting was set in Hong Kong. When Laura entered the hotel room, she began filming immediately. What followed became the documentary Citizen 4, a calm explanation of what the government was doing and how it was hidden. Snowden didn't dump files online. He worked with journalists, allowed verification, context, and redaction. Every document that was published was authenticated. When the stories broke, government didn't deny them. They pivoted. Yes, we collect data, but it's legal. Yes, we monitor communication, but it's necessary. The argument wasn't that Snowden was wrong. It was that the public wasn't supposed to know. The US government didn't respond by ending mass surveillance. It responded by hunting Snowden. He was charged under the Espionage Act, a law designed for spies, not for whistleblowers. Under this law, motive doesn't matter, and public interest doesn't exist as a defense. Snowden's passport was revoked mid-travel, and countries were pressured not to accept him. Even planes suspected of carrying him were forced to land. The government's message was very clear. Exposing the system was treated as a greater crime than abusing it. After the first revelations were published, Snowden was still in Hong Kong. Hong Kong allowed Snowden to leave before an arrest was enforced, so he boarded a plane with a stop in Russia. Russia wasn't a main destination for him, but somewhere between Hong Kong and Moscow, Snowden became legally invisible, and no country was willing to host him. And by the time he landed in Moscow, he simply couldn't leave. Snowden didn't choose Russia. Russia happened to be where he was when the door was closed. He arrived with no legal password and no way forward. And Russia had a choice. They could hand him over or let him stay. Sending him back would have pleased Washington, but keeping him did something entirely different. It embarrassed the United States. Snowden was valuable to Russia, not because he was handing over secrets, because he wasn't. He was valuable because he was public, a living reminder that the US punished exposure more aggressively than surveillance. And once he was there, the narrative shifted, away from the documents and away from surveillance, toward one question: why is he in Russia? And it was a perfect distraction, because debating his location was easier than confronting what he revealed. And once Snowden was trapped in Russia, the US government insisted the damage was done, not because surveillance was exposed, but because it was discussed. Publicly, officials promised reforms, new rules were announced, oversight was strengthened, and the language was softened. Some of the programs were ended, but behind the scenes the architecture stayed. Programs weren't dismantled, they were simply renamed. Authorities weren't removed, they were reclassified. Data collection wasn't reduced, it was outsourced. So instead of government agency holding the data directly, private companies began storing it for them. And instead of tapping lines themselves, intelligent agencies bought access. Same surveillance, just different paperwork. Snowden didn't expose one legal program, he exposed something much larger. A model of governments where surveillance is permanent, justified in secret, secret and debated only after exposure. Edward Snowden is still in Russia, not as an intelligent asset or a spy, but as a man who simply cannot go home. He lives under asylum, he works remotely, and he speaks occasionally, but very carefully. Not because he wants attention, but because silence meaning surrendering the narrative. Meanwhile, the world he warned about didn't slow down. It accelerated. Your phone tracks location by default. Apps collect behavior continuously. Facial recognition scans crowds. AI systems analyze patterns at scale. What once required secret NSA programs is happening now openly, through terms of service that no one reads. The tools Snowden revealed have become cheaper and faster, and the question he raised still hasn't been answered. Who watches the watchers? Edward Snowden didn't leak secrets to weaken the US. He exposed the contradiction at the heart of modern democracies. Governments that preach freedom abroad while practicing control at home. And he left the world with one question. If mass surveillance is necessary, why was it hidden? This is the end of today's episode. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, don't forget to like and subscribe. And if you have more ideas for me to cover in the next episodes, leave it in the comments. Until next time.